Hello, everyone. This is your host, Doug Camplejohn. Welcome to this week's episode of Revenue Renegades. Today, I am joined by Jordan Crawford, founder of Blueprint GTM, co-host of Cannonball GTM, the OG GTM engineer, and I think we just came up with the title of Prompt Freestyler Extraordinaire. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
We've talked over the years. We're both members of GTM Fund. I love talking to you because you've always got a spicy take on things. But let's start a little bit with kind of your main gig, I presume, Blueprint GTM. What is it that you do and kind of what inspired you to found it?
Sure. Well, let's talk about the founding story, but before I go into sort of what I do. And I will make this short. Shane Ferris does these things where he's like, "Tell me about your childhood." I was like, "No, no, no, I don't want to hear about your childhood. I don't really care how you got there." Um, but I have basically been fired from every job I've ever had, and I realized like, oh, I'm not an employee. I'm just not an employee. It's not what I do. I've been founding Blueprint since this business has been around since 2020. So 5 years old. So I'm basically on the way to being a decade old, and it all began because I wanted to take some of the learnings I had literally in personalized direct mail, weird, over to the B2B realm. And we've been doing go-to-market engineering since before Clay was a thing. When you had to back in my day, when you had to like look at keywords and you had to, and scraping meant getting something out of your pantry and pushing it off the website. Like we had to like go-to-market engineering was like much more engineering, much less go-to-market. And these days we got vibes. Like vibes can do a lot of things. So that's when we had to put in a lot of muscle grease to actually like real engineering to do the types of things that now AI can do for us. So that's kind of my story. And now the question about like what do I do? Well, I think that generally GTM engineer is like a concept that hasn't been around for too long, but it's exploding. A lot of people are thinking about hiring these titles, and the best way to think about it is like it's not RevOps. His goal is like to kind of orchestrate things. Go-to-market engineers are designed to help you figure out what is the connection between systems and strategy. And that's kind of what a good go-to-market engineer does. And the like average go-to-market engineers, what they're doing is they're automating plays, and those plays are generally off the shelf. And because the go-to-market stack is so sort of crusted and busted, that they're pulling in from your CRM and updating LinkedIn URLs, or they're like taking your inbound and going and qualifying for ICP, or they will like watch for job changers. And so it turns out that there's like a lot of revenue that exists on the ground of your business that if you just like hire someone to go pick that up, that actually there is a lot of value. That's not what I do. A lot of the stuff that I do is really it's answering a singular question, which is if the entire team had unlimited amounts of time to write a message to a customer that just closed as if they were cold, what would you send? What would you do? And that's like, and by the way, that's not just the message. That's like, what data would you pull? What's the sort of insight? What do you know about that customer that you could only know from that call? And and everything that I do is orchestrated around figuring out what that platonically perfect message looks like for a segment and then turning that into a system.
And so you've got some acronyms you came up with for this kind of like segmentation and this messaging. Can you talk more about those?
Yeah, and let me walk you through the frame of the argument because
Mhm.
this will help folks in their heads sort of understand exactly where I think we're coming from and why we're having such a hard time adopting AI. So this framework might seem familiar to you. So first, if you're a go-to-market executive, the first thing you do is account selection. So it is between 10 to $100 million. It is in the internet and technology industry. I don't know what that means, but that's a thing. It's a drop down. Um, uh, and then it's between 50 and 1,000 employees because if you're 49 employees, something changes in your business. And 1,000 first, like once you get that 1,000 first employee, everyone says, "Stop! Everyone, stop! We have to
Yep.
change everything that we are doing. We've added the 1,000 first. We're do everything." So you've got your account selection, right? Then once the accounts are selected, you write persona level messages. What does a Doug-like person care about? Now, I don't care what Doug cares about. I care what a Doug-like person cares about. It's kind of always it's a little bit of a silly concept in the world of AI, but it's a pretty useful heuristic to say VPs of marketing care about one thing, VPs of engineering care about other things. Okay, great. Then what you do is you will go find contacts. How do I go find Doug's email, his phone number? And there's actually like a lot of new solutions to go find emails in weird ways. Um, then everything breaks down when you ask your SDRs to personalize. So the first three steps, these are people in boardrooms somewhere, right? There's some people in a room that have never, they probably even had a conversation with a customer. If they're good leaders, they have, but most people haven't. They're like, I don't know, who needs to talk to customers. So you ship all of that great strategy work down to a 21-year-old SDR, and you know what they say is like, "Hey, Doug, I see you live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Oh my God, we're the same person. Our B2B SaaS tool is great for people that need help with AI and don't have good AI and need more AI. Like, do you have 30 minutes to meet with me?" Right? And like the best version of that message is, what school did you go to? Or like make it shorter, and or like, oh, what if you like add funny, there's all these like weird hacks. Like someone put together an entire website of my life, jordancrawford.life. You can go see it on archive.org. And it's like Jordan Crawford, a resounding history of experience and go-to-market expertise. I was like, oh, if I'm going to read 30 pages of this, by the way, it's AI slop. It's not even right.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the problems that I'm solving. So once your poor 21-year-old real SDR writes something, then you scale this with sales after outreach. So does that seem familiar to you, Doug? It's like
Very
is this,
familiar.
yeah, yeah.
To
So
painfully familiar.
yes. And so the question is, well, how did this how does this notion serve us today? And a lot of tools are trying to slot into this old framework. The AI SDR says, if you could just spend more time researching, Doug, if I just knew, and I like to think about this from a lens of, if you could do something 100x better, how much would it change the output, like the quality of the output? And so, Doug, if I knew that you woke up at 7:58 in the morning and you had 2 cups of coffee, and I knew that you didn't fully brush the bottom set of your teeth, like all of that information is so personal. I can send you a message so personal. It has nothing to do with your desire to buy my B2B SaaS. And so you could do unlimited amounts of research about Doug, et cetera. And the question is like, well, how does that inform your message? How does that improve anything about your go-to-market? So I have a different approach to this. And the first approach is like, let's just throw all of our tools away for a second. What we say on the cannonball, tooling is for tools. Just like put that away and ask yourself a question. What is your best performing segment? And I'm not talking about, well, it's internet and technology companies. I'm saying throw away all the zoom info filters in your head and just say it in plain English. And so, Doug, in your case, your best performing segment might be like, it's entrepreneurs that are, um, that have had a ton of inbound in a very short period of time, and their systems are a mess. And so just in English, right? And don't worry about how you're going to get the information. You just want to describe what that looks like. And you're generally trying to define what is the sort of inflection point that that business is at that they need you, right?
Mm.
Because slow burning problems are really hard to sell to.
Yep.
So you really want to find, what is the inflection point? What is the tension on the account? So once you have your segment identified, then you need to go find data. And so let me give you an example for a customer of mine. They're a wonderful solution. They will take your construction contract and tell you the risk in that contract, and they also will take the specs. So if you work for an organization that's here, there's a PDF that is no one can lift. I mean, not even Alex Ramosi himself can't lift this thing. It's so heavy. It's a huge document. And so they will go read that for you from your lens and say, Doug, these are the things that you should care about. So for them, the best data set turns out there's public city level contracts that are requests for bids. And so their best segment are folks that are bidding on public contracts. Now where does that data exist? Well, it turns out in the city level, you actually can go find those contracts. By the way, you can download the PDFs.
Good.
You can also go understand all the people that have bid on those things. It's all public information, right? And very hard to get it. You'd have to like hire some smart engineer. Like you'd have to hire me in 2020 to go do that, right? But now you don't need me. You could do this on your own. So we've got the segment and we've got the data now. Now we have two types of messages. We're on the third step here. There's a PQS and a PVP. Now, a PQS is a pain qualified segment. It's just the whole purpose of that message is just to recognize the situation you're in. And so we did one of these earlier for a client of mine, and I said, it seems like you are using Crush FTP. Have you closed these last two vulnerabilities? By the way, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the reason there have been 5 in the last 2 years is that it's made by one dude who lives in Lake Tahoe. Do you want to trust your IT infrastructure to a guy who's probably water skiing right now?
Oh,
They didn't say that last part. I would have said the last part because I have courage. No, uh, they have a brand to protect. I don't have a brand to protect.
yeah.
So basically, it's just describing the situation that that customer's in. And in this case, we did know that they were impacted by, or they were impacted by a vulnerability because they were using this tool. Everyone that
Mhm.
was using this tool at the time was impacted by that vulnerability. So I'm just describing their situation. Now, a PVP goes even further than that. So, and I'm blending two different customers. I'm making it hard for you. So, play me at half speed.
Oh, I'm hanging in there. That's good.
Okay, great. So, PvP is permissionless value prop, and it basically answers the question: what if you didn't have to depend on customers coming to you to get the value of your product? You could bring it to them. So, in this other customer that we were chatting about that does the construction documents, they we're going to pull in those PDFs. And there is a moment between when you can ask questions and the architect will respond to the questions. The question deadline is on the 1st, let's say, and you can bid until the 20th. So anyone that wants to bid or anyone that has questions, you're SOL. You got to YOLO that bid. You can't
Uh-huh.
ask any more questions, but you can feed that document to their engine and that engine can answer questions for you because it's just a public document that is Byzantine. So what a PVP looks like is I can say, Doug, I know you didn't get a chance to ask any questions on the renovation of the San Francisco Rec Center down in the Inn Richmond. Because you're focused on masonry work, the spec specifically calls out these requirements for the types and the amount of bricks and where the union bricks, where they have to be sourced. And so these are the exact things that you need to watch out for if you bid for this because you're going to have higher costs.
Huh.
And so that is a PV that is I didn't say anything about the brand. I didn't say, "And Doug, we promise you that we can get you $300 back on," like I did nothing, right? I
Right.
just
Yeah.
said,
Right.
"I've already looked at the document on your behalf. I've taken in your context and I've actually added value to you if you're going to bid on this project. Now I know that you need to protect yourself." And the last two steps in the 5-step system are very, very simple. You've got the segment, remember, you've got the data, you've got either a PQS or a PVP. All you can do is you just ask AI, change it for the channel. So you can use a tool like Clay. You can even make these into ad audiences. You can do cold calls, cold emails, LinkedIn messages. The AI can reformat this for the channel because remember, we have individual company and
Mhm.
people level targeting. And then the way that you scale this thing is you pick another segment and do it again. And so that's kind of what this motion looks like. And it is a lot easier for vertical SaaS companies to do because horizontal SaaS is like, who do you serve? It's like anyone with a wallet. It's like, who do you serve more? Anyone with a big wallet.
Right.
And so you don't run into those problems in vertical SaaS businesses. So that's kind of the old way, new way.
And so is a horizontal SaaS business not a fit for Blueprint?
Well, generally, if it's a regulated industry, it's much easier to do this because a lot of the stuff that I do depends on structuring and combining public data.
Got
So anywhere where there's a regulated industry, health tech, I'm doing like a company that sells to like dumpster companies. Is amazing. This is like there's no data set, and they use they use the word like, oh yeah, well we don't want to service people that do commercial trash, and I'm like. That sounds like my friend Patrick. He's commercial trash. I was like, oh, that's like such a good burn. Um, so I called him up. I was like, "Yo, you didn't. I missed you last week. You're commercial trash."
your
He's like,
commercial
Yeah,
trash.
you're commercial trash. Yeah." So those are kind of great industries for me. And it's not that horizontal can't do the things that I'm talking about, but the thing is, there's so much inertia because they sold when times were good.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, "Well, what do you do? Who do you sell to? Anyone that has a wallet."
Right.
And if you're selling to anyone that has a wallet, it's like we've got these 6 personas and we've got these 7 products and we've got these
Uh-huh.
42 use cases, right? This is a combinatory problem. And so the thing that I always say is that your knowledge actually fractures in that world, because if you sell to a automotive company and if you sell to a B2B SaaS entrepreneur, like, they have different needs.
Uh-huh.
And what happens is your knowledge will blend, and you'll have the average of your knowledge will be actually worse than if you said, "I'm just gonna focus on the automobile companies." And I chatted with one of these B2B, chat tools, and they verticalized their whole business, saw 3x improvement in conversion across the board because the reps that talk to automotive people weren't switching context over,
Yeah.
to plumbers, and it turns out that they do different things with the tool. So it's not that it's not a fit. It's just that it requires you to fight the gravity of we are everything to everyone and do that type of marketing and messaging. Instead, saying we're going to just experiment with this tiny, tiny slice.
Uh-huh.
And that requires like great courage of leadership.
So, I know that you're an early advisor, an investor in, one of the hottest B2B SaaS companies right now, Clay. Like, back to the earlier point here, it's a very horizontal tool at one level, right? You
Mhm.
can kind of morph it into lots of things. Have you either applied or thought about applying a framework, or how would you apply this framework to somebody that is that horizontal like a Clay?
Yeah, it's a good question. And also, people love to use examples to prove the rule. Clay is the slowest overnight success that you've ever
Right.
seen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
7 or 8 years or something, right? And be like, they blew up, they blew up. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they got punched in the face for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when I came to Clay, Varun hadn't joined yet, and he was like, "Hey, should I join this company?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And I knew that there was something there because even they did something. The first thing that made my eyes light up is you could do a programmatic Google search.
Uh-huh.
And before AI, unbelievably helpful. The amount of Google has already done all of the AI work for you, you'd be really surprised. You can
Uh-huh.
basically, this is why, the tools have to crawl the web to, and this is why you
Uh-huh.
still, to ChatGPT, it's like, you're still asking it to go talk to the web, like all the time, right? Being able to programmatically talk to the web is hugely valuable. So, and Clay at the time was like, we serve for recruiters and we serve blah, blah. They had not picked in 2020 when I started using the tool. And I said, "Yo, we need this. Go to market folks need this." And so I sat down with Kareem and I was like, ditch recruiters, God bless you recruiters, but ditch recruiters, go sell into the go to market team. And Clay, there's always an exception that proves the rule. And Clay is one of those companies that Oh, actually, this is a good heuristic. If you think about this as a complexity curve, right? Is that in the early days, actually, clay was not complex enough that
No.
people like me would use it and be like, "This thing sucks. Like it needs. I see the light, but
Right.
I need to do 86 other things, right?" And
Yep.
then what happens is, as you sort of increase that complexity, uh, it became harder for a lot of people, but it still actually wasn't complex enough for me.
Uh-huh.
And then what happens is, and Clay just continued to increase the complexity. They were adding features, so it became complex enough that Clay's genius actually was that if I'm going to show off Apollo or Six Sense or whatever, I cannot blend my own creativity when I talk about me using Apollo. "Hey, Doug, look, check out this filter. I'm gonna check these boxes in Apollo." That is
Right.
the world's worst how-to video. But when Clay crossed this complexity curve, suddenly it was code. It was just visual code for go-to-market folks. And if you have code, you can talk about the outputs of code. No one sees an app and they're like, "Oh my God, your Python. Show me your Python. Like, let me see you don't need to see it, right? You care about the output." And Clay got to the stage where it was so complex enough that people like me that are geeks and really like that complexity can show off what you can do with that complexity.
Uh-huh.
So Clay really took off not because they had some genius crack strategy. It's like folks like me were trying to get business. And like, what's the best way for me to get business? I'm going to talk about how smart I am. Oh, look
Right.
at this cool thing. And people love tools. They love tools. And they're like, "What is Jordan doing? What are these crazy videos that he's doing?" And so Clay's sort of genius is that they became a hard to use tool, as people might say today, but they became an indispensable tool for folks like me that basically can say, don't buy the tool, buy me. And the tool is just a way for me to quickly get to an outcome for you.
Yeah, I think, I think way back in early, even back in like Novell and all this early, like, software that was what was in the networking space. It was always amazing to me because I started my career at Apple and everything was about simplicity and ease of use, and I could not understand why complicated things were being successful. And then I realized as you said, it's this network of professionals who have a vested interest in making that thing successful. Salesforce in some ways is, very similar today. Like you've got all this amazing network of all of these consultants and integrators and all these things. And it's basically to make it, function, right? Because the core thing is still got so many holes and is broken in so many ways.
Yeah. And I would say that one of the Clay's strengths too is that if you run into any bug, there's 6 other ways to do a thing.
Mhm.
So it is like code in that way, which is like, hey, this
Yep.
function doesn't work in this way. Well, we'll pick another function. And so, people are like, Can't you make Clay easier? I wish Clay easier." What they're really saying is that I don't understand how to leverage the power, and I wish it was easier to print money. And I'm
Right.
like, those days are gone. Unfortunately, you actually do. The world is complex. Your customers are complex. They are in complex situations. And unfortunately, we do need complex tools to capture those things. And I think that vibe coding is changing some of this. Like, it is a lot easier, but it does not answer the fundamental question, which is, so what? You today have had all of the power of the world's smartest 12-year-old in your pocket for basically $0, $20 a month. Anyone can afford $20 a month. That's like a quarter of a latte here in San Francisco, especially if you get oat milk, or almond milk. God forbid, that's more expensive. So if you do that, but still, what are people asking? What's the weather, right? It's like, they're not really doing, this thing can code for you. It can connect up to systems. It can talk to huge databases. It can make videos. The capabilities keep increasing. The biggest problem with AI is weirdly also a Clay problem. It just has a better user interface. It's on the other end.
Mhm.
You are the problem. I am the problem. Like, we are the thing that are sitting in front of that chat box, and we are the thing that we need to level up because this is an alien form of intelligence, and it is amazingly adept at some things and just outright dumb at things that are just completely obvious to you and me.
So if you were going to go apply your framework, your blueprint framework of a pain qualified segment or a pain value prop to Clay, what would you say
Oh,
was
sure.
that?
How would I do it? Basically,
How would you? Yeah.
if I were to do growth for Clay, how would I do growth
Yep.
for Clay?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, pain qualified segment, permissionless value prop. So the one thing that Clay does, which is kind of exceptional, is that anytime that they will do a sales call, they will actually go and kick off a workflow for that company. And
Mm.
because there's so much trash laying on the ground of like opportunity, or like money laying on the ground, it's like, well, what if you just connected up your CRM and determined when people move jobs? And surprisingly, there's like whole companies that do this, but it turns out that that's a commodity, and it's really cheap, and it's really fast, and it's, so Clay can go say, let's go set that up. And so there are all these like small things that Clay just wants to get their hooks in, right? And because enough people like me have shown, like, wild ways to grow, now the question has flipped on them, which is not like, should you buy Clay? But it's like, you should buy Clay. And it's like, well, why? We don't need to answer why, which is ridiculous. But like, good for Clay. Good for
Right.
Clay to be like, and so now Clay has probably the other challenge. I don't have any insider baseball on this particular problem, but they have the other challenge is like, okay, well, now that they are ready to spend, you now have to have you first, not many companies have this exact problem. Uh, actually, one of these like really, really fast AI growing companies came to me and like, hey, Jordan, can we work together? And it's like, can you, and it was a transactional sale. I'm glad I didn't do it, but they're like, could just send me your top 5 ideas about how you would do growth for us. I was like, look, you're one of the 10 companies in the history of the world that exist in a money machine that is throwing money everywhere. You don't need some cracked ass guy like me. It's like you need to get a butterfly net and just do this as much as can. Like no one's in your situation. Like it is a great problem to have. You don't need like, oh, what if I could find the people that are using Claude Code in this weird way? It was Anthropic, but like, oh, it's like you don't need to do that. Everyone knows it. It's the valuable. You just got to be like, hey, what can I do to get more money? Right? It's like Anthropic's like, what if we just charge more money? OpenAI's like, what if we just charge more money? And like that works.
Yeah.
But for Clay, for like a paid qualified statement permissionless value prop, they don't have to do that because they have this amazing sort of growth channel. But if they did, what I would do is I would use the tool. This is like so meta, but use the tool for someone before they get it so that they can see how the tool will be used. So let me give you an example because this is like so many rabbit holes down. Um, I had a conversation with the guy that Evan, who runs user evidence, that does case studies, right?
Yeah.
I said, look, man, case studies are public. You can go tell if the people are there, and you can go tell if they have moved. So essentially, you can run a permissionless job changer play. So I could go to a company and say, "Hey, Doug, like Larry, Barry, and Jerry were case studies that you had. They worked at companies. They said glowing things about you. All three of them no longer work at the companies that you did the case study. Have you sold them?" And I can't find case studies for the new companies that they work at. Like, here's their emails. Have you sold? Have you done upsells to them? Basically.
Mhm.
So, and I could take it a step further. And this is kind of the beauty of the agentic world is that intelligence is getting so cheap. I can just keep going down the rabbit hole. I could programmatically reach out. Hey, Doug, I read your case study on this website, and you have moved since then. Did you bring the tool into your new? Oh, we haven't done it. It's like, are you thinking about? Yes, I am. So now I can forward that. And I said, yeah, Evan, I was having a conversation with Doug, and he actually said great things about user evidence, and he actually said that he like wants to bring in it at his new company. You should probably chat with him. Now, do you think Evan at User Evidence CEO is going to be like, I don't know you, Jordan. Why are you sending me this cold outreach spam for Doug, my customer, to buy again? Like, no, he's going to be like, it's like, I don't know. The first question that Evan's going to ask is like, where do I know that guy?
Yeah.
It's like, and then I can send another email. It's like, you don't know me. I am sorry to interrupt. Like, I just having a conversation and suddenly everything flips. How did you do that? It's like, well, it's funny that you should ask.
Yeah.
And that's an inbound conversation. Everything changes because you have asked me about what I do. You are
Yeah.
now inviting me to that sales conversation.
Can you, we haven't done this in the show before, but, is it possible you can show us some of this stuff in action? We can do a little screen share?
Yeah, actually, we can do sort of um, well, there's two ways we can do this. We can do this actually, I think we're going to do this for a company called Greenlight.
Okay.
This is a company that I was having a conversation with. I really like, I always try to, I do my best to sort of downplay my capabilities on every sales call that I am so people don't get like, oh, I'll just trust Jordan. Jordan will figure it out. It's like, I don't want to weaken their own thinking. I'm like, I don't know your customers. Like, I'm just a guy that's like using the models. Um, so this company, I'll share my screen and I will go over what they do because they just have a beautiful value prop, a beautiful data set that I have, some insider baseball that I can help you with. And
Only an OG GTM engineer would talk about beautiful data sets.
yeah. But you're working at Apple, and every time I hear Apple in my head, I think Johnny Ive like, what we tried to do was we looked at the data set and we thought, what if it didn't involve any data at all? Um,
Yes.
so okay, your ideal path to a building permit. So look at this. Look at all these like amazing brands. Chipotle. Chipotle has like a goal I heard to open like hundreds of stores, like 200 stores a year. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Why don't they open one a little bit closer to me?
Mm.
So you're fast tracked to hassle-free permitting. So let me actually tell you about some new laws that have happened that make this company just like a killer. It turns out that entire states now are letting private entities approve plan checks, which
Yeah.
means that, hey, Doug, you want to do a renovation on your house, or in this case, your new Chick-fil-A that you are as the proud owner of a new Chick-fil-A, your favorite your favorite restaurant. Uh,
Next to you. I'm gonna put it right next to you, Jordan.
yeah. So it's like you're a Chick-fil-A franchise owner, and you go to the city of Sausalito, and the city of Sausalito is like 3 years behind. So they're like, look, we got to talk to the water commission. We got to make sure it's like you put that thing on stilts. It's like, oh, we got to look at every single chicken. We got to interview every chicken, and so, but it turns out that there are entities that say, look, we certify this organization to approve code on our behalf. Because it's not a money problem, it's just a resource problem. The city of Sausalito is not, they're not going to hire a bunch of people. So, and they're happy to charge a company to like go do these plan checks. And of course, they'll hold the liability. And I'm sure that, the incentives are aligned, right? So this is happening all over the country. But that means that what Greenlight can do is they can go to a Chick-fil-A and say, yo, 300 of your locations have sat in permitting for 300 days. Like, we can get them approved in 48 hours. So just a massive
Wow.
change for a huge organization, and right place, right time, verticalized SaaS, great public data. So I'm cheating here. I'm picking like a good company. So it's not completely up my sleeve, but so let's just do a new chat in Claude. And I'm not going to, I have all these projects that help me cheat at this, but I'm not going to do any of that. So you can see, so you see nothing in this sleeve, Doug, and nothing in this
Yep.
sleeve. It's just my voice and my prompts. Okay.
Presto Hugo.
Yeah. Confirm for the audience. All right. So I'm in Claude here. Now I'm in my desktop Claude. Now I do have one cheat code that you don't have access to. I have MCP server access to a database called Shovels, 172 million permits across the country. Amazing data, just the nicest people that you could ever meet. And so I said, yo, give me access to your database. Who do I have to bury under the river? They said, okay, we'll give it to you, Jordan. So this thing is connected in the back end. You'll see how that works in a sec. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to slow the model's thinking down and build it, have it build context. So I'm going to get their website, green, greenlight, greenlite.com. And I'm going to talk. I'm going to use a tool called Super Whisper. So you'll actually be able to hear me. Emojis. What I want you to do is I want you to understand their ideal customer profile, everything about this company, and I want you to they exist in this really interesting space where there's all of these permits that are allowed to be jurisdictions, and I think even states that are allowed to privatize permitting. And so that's kind of one of the things that Greenlight can do. And so what I want you to do is understand everything about their customer from the lens of a chief revenue officer so that they'll have absolutely everything. Focus on QSR change, quick service restaurants. So like get information about quotes and permits. And then also make sure to go online and just like help me understand like what are the states where that are really the most backed up with permits that Greenlight has a accessibility to file permits on those behalfs that you think quick restaurant service chains want to be in. So go ahead and do that for me now. So we're gonna just like have the model build up context here, and so it's gonna go online and give context. And so while it's gonna do that, I'm gonna like talk to it one more time. So while Claude sort of generates the code. All right. Now that you have context on Greenlight, what I want you to do is you have MCP access to the Shovels database, and I actually need to put together a dossier, if you will, of the 3 best leads for them. Now, these are going to be probably franchises. I want to make sure they're franchises they've never worked with before. So go to their website, make sure that they have never worked with these companies before, and I want to find like basically the most egregious permits for these 3 chains. Now, they might be quick service restaurants. They could also be developers for quick service restaurants, so that's okay. They could be franchises, so quick service restaurants might have a series of franchises. But the end result of all of the querying of the Shovel database really has to come up with 3 of the absolutely right people to contact, the right companies to contact, the actual sites where they've had huge permitting delays, which, by the way, when you investigate those permits, they have to be permits that Greenlight actually could help with. So that's both a jurisdiction as well as a complexity thing. Um, and then you should think long and hard about the sales development rep needs the entire story about this account, a data driven story. So I don't just want you to sort of write the message, but make sure that they have a packaged understanding of everything that they would need to be able to understand so they know that you understood their current problem in ungodly specificity, as well as could match that with their public goals, and that is from real data in the Shovels database. And if you have to complement it with online data, go forth and do that.
What is the name of this tool that you're using for the voice piece, by the way?
Superwhisper.com. Yeah.
Superwhisper.com.
And
Okay.
basically, OpenAI invented this model called Whisper, and so they're all using the same OpenAI model in the background. OpenAI does a lot of the stuff that Super Whisper basically it uses its own models to do this. And in ChatGPT, it's great because they used to block the microphone icon while it was generating, but now you can talk. So
Mm,
if you're in OpenAI, if you're in ChatGPT, you don't need this, but the other models don't do this.
got it.
So great. So it's built up context. It's like, okay, well, great. Quick service restaurant represents $406 billion in 2024. Fantastic. Um, Real estate investment trust, clean technology, so multi-unit franchise developers. So I ask it to kind of these are green, these are Greenlight's golden geese. I love Claude. Claude writes like this all the time. It's just like so cute. Um, for a typical QSR build out costing $2 to $3 million, a 60 permit delay can mean $120,000 in carrying cost alone. Oh my gosh.
Gold.
Doug, you and I work in the era of funny money, but they're like this is like real cash. It's
Yep.
like real cash outlay if they don't get a permit approval. So I had a conversation, and now what Claude is doing is actually talking to the database. And so it's like, okay, great. Let's explore the database and understand the structure. So I don't have to worry about hallucinations because it's literally just it's you can see it's like writing SQL queries. And so it's talking to the database. This will take a second while it bakes, and once this is done, though, and we would do this at scale here. This is just kind of parlor tricks for a podcast, but there's nothing that prevents this framework from not being used at scale. This is just a good way to actually show, like, well, what does a message look like when you do this type of research? And by the way, this is not like just find any research online. This is thinking
Right.
about working backwards from the value that they provide, what data sets are connected with the value. Once you have those two things, then you know how to compile a message. And that's kind of where we are in this step.
And the MCP interface to this particular database, was this something that was already provided by the data provider, or how was that wiring up
The
done?
beautiful thing about MCP, Model Context
Mm,
Protocol, it was invented by Anthropic,
mhm.
is that it's a really light protocol, which means that if you can get a login to any database, Snowflakes, a Databricks, or whatever, all these guys have MCP servers now, but even if you had some legacy thing, you can just ask Claude, make me a local MCP server to connect to this data. And you can run it on your machine. And so it's turtles all the way down, right? There's no problem that you could run into that AI can't find as, I mean, I shouldn't say that, it's like, if you're having relationship troubles, maybe say it's not helpful, but maybe it'll do
GTM
more worse.
engineers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hire
Yeah.
me if your marriages. So okay, great. So lead dossier. Panera Bread. Panera's undergoing massive operational transfer. Sales declining more than 5% in 2024 to 6.1 billion. Oh my gosh, let's shed a tear for them at the 6.1 billion dollars.
Mhm.
Um, applied for a demolition permit in June of 2020. Received in August. Still working through build out permits as of March. A 9-month permitting journey for a single location. Oh, Bay Meadows. Oh, that's here in the Bay.
Yep.
St. John's Country Beach Walk, 3,200 square foot restaurant with drive through project cost of $400,000, representing a new prototype, right? They're going to care about that, right? That's
Yep.
amazing. And signed the lease. Okay, great. CEO's imperative, 3-year turnaround plan, all fresh facilities to a par baked model. What does that mean? We bake ahead of time. Rapidly convert build locations. So great. This is like the CEO's like, I need to change everything. I need to
Right.
unbake all the Paneras and rebake them. So it's like, great. I know how much, and this is all public data, right? Um, so uh, so great. It has this public data. And now what we're going to do is actually have it go query the database. Okay, this is fantastic. It looks like what you've done is found some really good public data. But I actually need to be able to tell a story about individual locations, their individual permit challenges, and like build a message with unbelievable amounts of credibility. So I can't go to Panera or to Chipotle or Wingstop with this bullshit messaging. Like I have to be able to talk about exact permits, where I can help, where they're under delays, and we can like essentially quantify that cost. So give me some messages that are undeniably beautiful and specific about those problems where Greenlight can actually make a promise of getting those in 24 to 48 hours or a very quick turnaround time, saving them from essentially an unlimited money pit of delays. So go find real data for me for at least like 1 to 3 different locations for each of these brands. So, and then this will be the last sort of
When you're
prompt, but
doing
this
this, it's interesting. And you, the ungodly, like the emphasis, that you're putting into that? Do you find that makes a difference?
I spend so much time talking to these models that the words out of my mouth shape my own reality. And so it has nothing to do with the models. It's that I try to say like nice things to the models just because I'm bathing myself in words that are, oh, like this is nice. I was like, hey, thanks, ChatGPT. Like every time I get into Waymo here in San Francisco, I'm like, hey Waymo, thanks Waymo. Like I always greet it. Like it's the opposite of the Alexa effect where it's like if you wanted Alexa to work at, you had to like yell at Alexa to get
Yeah.
it to work. Yeah. Yeah. And so you can actually push it's this is a half truth because you can push these models to spend more time doing this, and actually emotional resonance does seem to make the models perform better. They've done some studies on it, and by the way, it's in either direction. I
Mm.
used to say something like, my job is on the line, if I don't do this I'm going to get fired. I don't do that anymore,
Mm.
because I don't need to. So now I try to be sort of positively encouraging.
And so doing this, I mean, obviously, any one of these, individual uh, emails are going to be highly targeted.
Yeah.
I presume you're getting an amazing. What kind of response rates are you seeing from these things?
Generally, we see a 1 to a 2% positive response rate when we do some of this stuff at scale, when we do like really, really targeted campaigns.
Mhm.
The better segmentation you get, the like higher your response rates. But this is all just the quality of the it's the it's the competition in the market relative to the quality of the message. And also it's like kind of a triangle. It's a competition in the market, the quality of the message, and the quality of the targeting. And so one of the things that I'll always say is the list is the message. The way in which you do the targeting is what you say.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so you can kind of see how it looked actually like a lot of it. Like this is a perfect example where it's like query the shovels database. Uh, database. This is a case where it's like, which is really helpful to be able to see this because you can see that what it's doing is it's actually looking online. It's not
Mhm.
actually querying the shovels database, and that's like what I want it to do.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but you can see that when it told these stories, like if you really scroll up, you can see like it's actually uh oh, yeah. So, like, actually here, this is a perfect example. It's like, "Hey, it's not available in this Databricks instance," because it's not Databricks. It's like it's Snowflake.
Got
So, like, you'll run into these, uh, yeah, it's Snowflake,
it.
not Databricks. Th
Are you
actually
doing all caps for on purpose or
Well,
just that?
yeah, that actually does help, but I don't I have a particular neuroses where I don't use the shift key, I just hit caps lock twice. I never learned to, like, hold down shift, and so if people watch me type, they're like, "Dude, your caps lock key is broken, like, it's flickering all the time." I'm like, "No, I just hit it twice." And so this is like it's like a dirty secret. So I do end up like, you'll see me on LinkedIn, it's like, oh, there's, like, a bunch of caps, like, some of that is intentional, but it
So you're
comes
being
from the
very
fact that
for our robot overlords, you're being very polite to Waymo, but you're yelling at Claude is what you're saying.
Yeah, clear I know. I do it's like I always joke that there's gonna be on my tombstone, "Here lies the first person that Skynet killed." It's just like, "May he forever rest in peace," and they're gonna have my voice like, "My job is on the line, my job is on the line," so you can you're gonna be able to go up my grave and I will be the cautionary tale. It's like, "Do
Yeah.
not talk to the world's most powerful thing in this way," like,
The
it
way
will
it
come
is.
for you.
Don't do
You
it the way
also
Jordan.
can see now this says S instead of D. So,
Mm.
that like before it was trying I have a
He's
bunch of
telling you
MCP
what the
servers,
source
so it
is.
was like contacting
Yeah.
Databricks and it's like, "Oh, the data's in Snowflake." Like, "Oh, you're absolutely right. Let me query the Snowflake database." This
Yeah.
it's funny, this makes me feel my job is secure because I can be like, "Look, I've got a purpose. I told it S, not D." It's like, "Oh, look, I got like a little how cute is that? I
That's
got a
not
job
right.
again." Yeah, it's like it but this is why my framework is so, so important because if you don't have a framework with which to talk to these models, you'll end up going in some deranged direction and
Uh-huh.
you'll have no way to it's so funny. I vibe code, I can build stuff so, so, so fast now. I just will vibe code stuff and I'll ship it to the customer. I'm like, look, this could be total shit because I don't know your customer and also the model. I'm like reasoning on reasoning on reasoning on reasoning. And this data set I'm not familiar with. So you got to take this with a grain of salt. So look at this and go evaluate, go evaluate this through your lens So this is really kind of the nicest way to do that because you can sort of see that logic be built. So great. You can see it's like, now we're talking. Great. Michael, your franchise at 6705 Pine
Perfect.
Forest Road, Pensacola, applied for a simple interior alteration permit on June 13th, 2023. It's now
Wow.
August 20th, 2025. That's 734 days for a takeout only Wingstop. Here's what else is stuck in permitting hell. Irving, Texas,
Wow.
1000 I can't pronounce that number. North MacArthur Boulevard, permit 2023, filed August 15th, 671 days are still in review. Pensacola, the financial measures, lost revenue, 7.34 million, rent paid with no income, 176,000, construction loan interest, 293. Your franchise total losses, 7.8 million on one location. Your franchise paid you $20,000 of franchise fees and $10,000 development fees to wait 2 years for a permit that Greenlight could have approved in 48 hours of private provider in Florida. We're
That
certified in
is
Pensacola. I mean, right? This is amazing, right?
amazing.
671 days is criminal. Good job, Claude. You're right. It's criminal.
So let me ask you a question now. So we started off talking about, like, kind of what is the old model, and effectively, like, the AI SDRs are just like, spam cannons on steroids, right?
Mhm.
Um, so you're at the bleeding edge of this stuff right now. How much, there's obviously companies, and I don't have insider baseball on this. You probably have more than I have. Companies like Operator and others that are trying to basically come at this message and saying, the way to go, the antithesis of outreach and sales loft is to have these crazy hyper targeted messages. Are they basically trying to, do you see companies, and it may be them or others, that are effectively trying to turn this into a product? What you just
The
demonstrated.
thing about turning this into a product is people, because they are VC backed, don't recognize the conditions under which this product fails.
Mm,
Like, this is amazing demo for a podcast, Doug, but you're gonna come to me, you're gonna be like, "Hey, Jordan, can you do this for coffee?" I'm like, "No way." Like, "What data do you have?" And you're like, "Oh, no," but, like, "And who's it for?" And you're like, "I don't know." You wouldn't say it, but, like, it's different, right? And so the thing is that none of these companies, and this is how you know you're in dangerous territory, is like, "Who can't you serve?" And they're like, "As long as you got Benjamins in your pocket, I can
yeah,
serve you."
yeah,
But I don't say that shit to my customers, right? It's like they'll come to me and they'll be like, "Well, who do you serve?" Like, "Well, we service all these people." It's like, "Well, what do you know about them? What is your unique insight?" And so the problem is that it's not in the calls, it's not in the CRM, it's not in the case studies. The actual data that you need to be able to, and this is particularly easy because it's all public, but usually the data that you need to be able to do this is in your customers' heads and you don't even have it anywhere. And
right,
so it's really hard for an operator or for an AI SDR or or whatever to come in and say, "I can do lead gen for you." And it's like, "You can't even do lead gen for you. Your entire team that is like, you're just pumping stuff up and you're like, oh, great, if I have a tool." And people love to buy tools. So
yeah,
of course, if I can take the easy button, but I always say that it's like, you have to eat your vegetables. You as a leader don't even know what you would what would you, in the perfect case, Doug, what would you automate? Like, you can't answer that question. And if you can't answer that question, how do you expect some other company who, by the way, does not care about your best interest, they care about their numbers, how are they going to answer that question? It's just it's a absurd thing to do. It's an absurd thing to say, "Well, don't worry, we just throw enough intelligence at it and they'll just drive you pipeline." Now, I do believe that there are some the reason that they don't have $0, the reason they've got, 10 million, and they're going to cap out, is because there are some industries where literally just volume will take care of this.
yeah,
Like, volume and better than terrible messaging. So it's like, if you're selling toothpaste to dentists, it's like it turns out there aren't any B2B SaaS companies who are selling toothpaste to dentists. So it's like, if you just send a ton of emails to dentists that are like messages that you just haven't scaled before, it's like that will work. And so
right,
it's this wonderful high before the crash because they think they can do this, but there's just so many businesses where they have so many fundamental things incorrect in the business that no ASDR will help. And then, by the way, it means that you have no heuristic about which companies you won't serve. And as you same horizontal trap, right? As you go horizontal, you develop no deep expertise in any particular industry. And this is why I serve vertical SaaS brands that have interesting public data sets that if they could blend them, because I'm not competing with ZoomInfo. ZoomInfo doesn't sell that data. They have a hard time getting data, like, and they know how hard it is. So when they come to me, they're like, Jordan, anything would be great, right? And so I think this is the biggest problem with the AI SDR is that they've got no framework and they also have no disqualification framework. Ask those companies, how do you know, well, like, will it work for me? And they'll give you some platitudes about, well, if you're a B2B, they won't tell you under which conditions they would say no.
Yeah. Well, this is a first. Thank you. We've never done a demonstration on the podcast before. I think we're gonna have a bunch of people checking this out because I don't think they've seen your stuff live in action before. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, thanks.
I know
Appreciate it.
we're almost at time, so let me just shift gears and ask you a little kind of speed round questions so
Yeah,
people
yeah.
can get to know the real Jordan
Oh, sure,
Crawford.
sure. Yeah, the real.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
God. Okay.
And then we'll kind of wrap up, and I want to make sure that people get a chance to hear about all the cool stuff you have coming up as well.
Great.
So, you know, what would be something somebody would be folks would be surprised to know about you?
Well, sometimes I just pick up and go. I'll like drive across the country on a whim or drive up to Oregon or Canada on a whim because I will feel trapped here. I love San Francisco, but so I'll just get in my car and peace out. And this is the beautiful. I always say that I'm always optimized for MER, most enjoyable revenue. That I'm not trying to sell people that I don't want to work with. I'm not trying to sell people in situations that I don't want to help with. And fortunately, because I get invited to beautiful podcasts like this, I don't have to think about that. I've worked for 5 years too to not have to think about that problem. And so it means that I worked out of Italy for a month in October, which was lovely. And, they were like, what work do you have to do? This is like that's French, I guess. But what's the difference? And so it was great, And so I think people would be surprised that even though I work ridiculously hard, I do my best to not to allow that freedom to flow through my life and not make revenue the crutch.
I love it. What do you like to do for fun?
Well, driving is just like
Driving is obviously one of them.
is
Yeah.
unbelievably joyous. Um, this is a cop out answer from an entrepreneur, but like we're at a time where the tools can do so much. It's just a random example. I met with the guy that runs this medical device company, and he's like, "Oh, I want to like partner with truckers, and I want to know all the people that or like, how would I grow this business?" I was like, "I know how." And so for like 4 hours in the middle of the night, I'm like, "Here's every trucking company in the country that you should partner with and why based on the prevalence of diabetes in that area." This is a thing that helped diabetes.
Wow.
And then I said, here's the 300 highest prescribing doctors of these machines today, because it's in the Medicaid data. And I said, if you're going to run ads in any cities, here's the prevalence of prescriptions at 2,634 cities across the country. And I like did that it probably took me 3 hours, but, uh, and so I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can move at lightning speed and bring together these databases." And so this sort of single thing I'm thinking about now is like, how do I get this stuff to market faster where a team doesn't have to be the limiter, and
Yeah.
so I'm maybe one of the only CEOs who likes to work. Like I joke, but I want to get my hands, like I want to do the dirtiest of the work right now, because this is why you see, and I really respect him for doing this. Like you see Jason Lemkin like blasting the SaaStr database, like I deleted the production database. It's like good. I mean, well, yeah, your engineer should not have given that man access to his own data, like
Yeah.
for sure. Um, uh, but for sure. But like that's what we need to be doing. Like we have to be playing around in these things. And so like as a kind of disgusting as that answer is, like I now code for fun
Yeah.
because I can get actual real value outputs.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask the question about favorite product, but you answered that one as well. Um,
Oh,
uh,
Claude Code
yeah,
is
yeah.
hands down,
Plug code for
hands
sure.
down.
Yeah, I think it is this thing where just this explosion of creativity. I mean, I've been working in tech for a long time, and I've never had this much fun. Like, and I have a lot of fun, right?
Yeah,
But I'm just like, this is just like friggin' like kid in a candy shop every
it's
day.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's I mean, you just can get and the thing is you can get things done that not only do you never think were possible, you never even thought to think about, which
right.
is the crazy thing is that like the most underused thing of ChatGPT is it's just a translation layer. And
Well,
so it's like if you were trying to understand the FAA database of planes, forget it. You spend your whole life and you're like, what's a part 10758? And they're like, that's an engine. I'm like, an engine? Why did they call it a fucking engine? And so there's just like this is all in all these data sets, right? But now Claude can explain it to me like I'm 5. And it's
mhm.
just incredible. It's like, "Oh," and it can merge, so it's like, "Oh, you have this context, the database has this context, you should blend them like this." I'm like, "I should blend them like that. That's a great idea." And how fun. I mean, what privilege do we have to be able to just muck around with this stuff right now? I mean, we're just in the best place in the world, the
And the
best
best.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, and I often say, like, what the question which questions to ask is just often the most important, and I've always said that from a startup standpoint and a life standpoint, and
Totally.
it's never been more true. Like, I almost feel like right now I'm like, the guidance I want is like, what questions aren't I asking? What questions should I be asking, right?
Oh,
That's the part.
those are great questions too because the models are sycophants, right? They just take you down whatever path that you want. You're like what should I eat today? And it's like here's blueberries. Here's everything about blueberries, and the like, well, like are blueberries good for me? It's like no, they're totally bad for you. You shouldn't eat blueberries. They're awful. Like, well, why would you tell it to me? It's like I don't know. Just this is what I decided to do. And so they're so random that you have to be like, okay, no, I'm trying to restrict my calories, and I know that there's like too much antioxidants. I don't deranged, but like okay, blueberries are great. You should buy blueberries. So like that's the thing is that they will take you down these things, and you have to. I think Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, said that the best skill in 2025 is discernment, that
Mm,
you need to be able to figure out what is the very, very like just for example, everything that we saw today, the bullshit sounded so real. They like
uh-huh.
actually found and Claude found some things from the web, but it's
Yeah,
like I was like, wait a minute, you aren't talking to the database. I don't have a permit number. Like, wait a
yeah.
minute. And Claude's like, you caught me,
You got
you
me.
son of a bitch. Yeah, you caught me. How did you catch me? It's like, are you watching what I do?
Yeah.
So you really have to be careful.
So finally, just tell us what you got coming up. How can people, get more of Jordan, keep in touch with you, help you in your journey?
Sure. So you can go to jordancrawford.com and that will roll to my LinkedIn. I'll just forward. The basketball star that dunked on LeBron James does not own jordancrawford.com. And so suck it. If you are in San Francisco on September 18th, I'm doing AI barfed on my carpet and my customer stepped in it, which is because we don't have any board or we're not VC backed. We could put deranged titles to things. And so what we're going to do is just the type of thing that you saw today. We're going to take a random brand from the audience, and we're going to walk them through the full sort of go to market, teach you about agentic use cases, talk about why the models don't just produce good stuff out of the box for us, and actually how you can apply the frameworks that we've talked about today. And then I'm a co-founder of Cannonball GTM. So we've got a Substack. It's in less than 6 months is a top 50 business Substack where we will take a brand from a hat and we will usually prepare for 13 to 14 minutes before the show. And there's just no prep at all. And we will pick a brand and do their full go to market. So those are the best. Those are the best. LinkedIn. You can go to aibarf.com. I got the .com, so that'll forward to the event.
Barf.com. Very
Yeah,
nice.
aibarf.com. Yeah, AI barfed. And then cannonballgtm.com, and you'll be redirected to the Substack.
Well, I'm going to be at the AI Barfed event, and I'm looking forward to that. And
Great.
I hope others listening will come as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks
uh,
so much for having me, Doug.
Jordan, great chatting with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.